Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the George W. Norris Legislative Chamber for the first day of the 180th Legislature, second session. Our chaplain for today is Speaker Arch. Please rise.
Let us pray. Dear God, our Father, you have written in Psalm 90, verse 12, through your prophet Moses, so teach us to number our days that we may get a heart of wisdom. Our days are numbered, Father. We have 60 days as we approach this session. So we ask that you would give us a heart of wisdom that we might make decisions that please you and do what is best for the citizens of Nebraska. Father, we also pray, as you have written in Psalm 90, verse 17, let the favor of the Lord our God be upon us, and establish the work of our hands upon us. Yes, establish the work of our hands. We are totally dependent upon you to accomplish this. In your Son's holy name, amen.
Thank you, Speaker Arch. We'll now have the presentation of the colors from the Nebraska State Patrol Headquarters Troop Honor Guard. I recognize Senator Lowe for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Will you please join with me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Pursuant to the provisions of Article 3, Section 10 of the Constitution of Nebraska, the 180th Legislature, second session of the Legislature assembled in the George W. Norris Legislative Chamber of the State Capitol at the hour of 10 o'clock a.m. on Wednesday, January 3rd, 2024, is now called to order. Senators, please record your presence. Forgot where the bell was, Dick. Oh, you have 7 excused today, okay. Yeah. I have 7 excused, right? Don't I? Or...
The guests cleared out of here.
Sure.
Before we start elections.
Sure.
Some people might throw their name into the hat that don't intend to actually run or want to speak either about themselves or another candidate. We will recognize them, let their piece, but I think before we close it for a vote, if we're going to vote, we give them extended time to stand up and withdraw should they so choose. I think they may want an opportunity to withdraw their name.
Okay. Record, Mr. Clerk.
There's a quorum present, Mr. President.
Mr. Clerk, resignation and appointment letters.
Mr. President, series of letters. Communication from the Secretary of State confirming the roster for the 108th Legislature second session. Additionally, resignation letter from Senator Tom Breezy. A communication from the governor concerning the appointment of Senator Meyer. Communication from the chair of the executive board concerning Senator Meyer's appointment to the Education and Revenue Committees. That's all I have this time, Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk. Senator Hughes would like to recognize the physician of the day, Dr. Hodavy of York, Nebraska. Please stand and be recognized by the Nebraska Legislature. Mr. Clerk, other messages, reports, or announcements?
I do, Mr. President. Series of gubernatorial appointments to various boards and commissions, including the Adjunct General, Director of Nebraska Department of Economic Development, Executive Director, Nebraska Crime Commission, Nebraska Crime Victims Reparation Committee, Nebraska Liquor Control Commission, Director of Broadband, Nebraska State Patrol Representative of the to the Public Employees Retirement Board, members of the Nebraska Educational Telecommunications Commission, members of the Nebraska Victims Crime Reparation Committee, public member, charitable organization, Nebraska Crime Victims Reparation Committee, public member, experience of victims and survivors, Tax Commissioner of the Nebraska Department of Revenue, Chief Executive Officer of the Nebraska Department of Health and Human Services, appointment to the Nebraska Board of Parole, the Coordinating Commission for Post-Secondary Education, Commission of Industrial Relations, State Race and Gaming Commission, State Highway Commission, Nebraska Technical Advisory Committee for Statewide Assessment, Director of the Nebraska Public Employees Retirement System, Director of the Nebraska Health and Human Services Division of Children and Family Services, member of the State Highway Commission, members of the Nebraska Environmental Trust Board, Nebraska Board of Health, State Highway Commission, Nebraska Oil and Gas Conservation Commission, Nebraska Ethanol Board, Nebraska Investment Council, Board of Educational Lands and Funds, member of the Nebraska Power Review Board, Nebraska Arts Council, Tax Equalization and Review Commission, Board of Educational Lands and Funds at Large, Nebraska Power Review Board, Coordinating Commission for Post-Secondary Education at Large, Coordinating Commission for Post-Secondary Education, Game and Parks Commission, Public Employee Retirement Board, and Stem Cell Research Advisory Committee. Additionally, Attorney General's opinion addressed to Senator Tom Brewer. Communication from the Clerk of the House of the Oklahoma House of Representatives, as well as a communication from the Oklahoma Secretary of State and Senate. Series of priority bills, Mr. President. Senator Jacobson has prioritized Legislative Bill 31. Senator Conrad has prioritized Legislative Bill 16 as her personal priority. Senator Kalf has prioritized Legislative Bill 575 as her personal priority. Senator Arch has designated Legislative Bill 461 as his personal priority. Senator Brandt has designated Legislative Bill 61 as his personal priority. And Legislative Bill 78, 308, and 664 are three of the Speaker priority bills for this session, Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk. We will now proceed to the election of the chairperson of the Executive Board. The chair recognizes Senator Holdcroft.
Mr. President, I move to proceed to the election of the chairperson of the Executive Board of the Legislative Council.
Members, please find your seats. The motion before you is the motion to proceed with the election of the chair of the executive board. All those in favor say aye. All those opposed say nay. The motion is adopted. Senator Aguilar, you're recognized. Speak.
Good morning, colleagues. I rise today to nominate myself to serve as chair of the executive board. As the longest tenured member of the body, I believe that I have the experience and insight necessary to continue serving as executive board chair. I have previously served as vice chair of the executive board and have been serving as acting chair following Senator Breezy's departure. During my previous service in the legislature, I also served as chair of the Government, Military, and Veterans Affairs Committee. The executive board, and specifically the executive board chair, is tasked with supervising all legislative services and employees, and basically serves as the internal management of the legislature. As acting chair for the past 2 months, I have been working directly with the executive board and division staff, and I am committed to continuing to support and lead the institution in a nonpartisan manner going forward. I humbly ask for your vote and your support.
Thank you, Senator. Are there any further nominations? Senator Kavanaugh, you're recognized to speak.
Thank you, Mr. President. Good morning, colleagues. As we all know, an uncontested chairmanship race means we vote by unanimous consent. And so there's been a lot of conversation about how we want to have clear and transparent elections of chairmanships, and I think not voting by unanimous consent is a good start. So the only way to force that this morning is to run for chair of the executive board. While I do think that I have the qualifications to run for executive board and to be the chair of the executive board, I am purely nominating myself so that we actually have a vote for the chairmanship. It is not because I don't believe in Senator Aguilar's qualifications. I just don't believe in us continuing to vote for these critical positions without taking an actual vote. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Senator Kavanaugh. Are there any additional further nominations? Seeing none, the chair declares that nominations are closed. Seeing no further nominations, members will be distributed ballots. Members, please mark your ballots. The clerk and assistant clerks will come and collect those ballots. Senator Sanders, Senator Lowe, and Senator Holcroft, would you be counters? Members, could you find your seats and assist the clerks? Please return to your seats and assist the clerk and staff in collecting the ballots. Thank you. Senator Aguilar has been elected chair of the executive committee by a majority of the members. Congratulations. We'll move on to the election of the vice chair of the executive board. Senator Bostelman, you're recognized. Senator Bozen, you're recognized for a motion.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move to proceed to the election of the vice chair of the executive board of the Legislative Council.
The motion before you is to proceed with the election of the vice chair of the executive board. All those in favor say aye. All those opposed say nay. The motion is adopted. Senator Lowe, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. President. I rise today to ask for your vote to be the next vice chair of the executive board. I have served on the executive board for the last 3 years in the legislature. During my time on the executive board, I have helped the board deal with numerous challenging circumstances. I have been a deliberative member of the board as we consistently dealt with management of the institution and its processes. I have appreciated the work of the legislative staff who have provided guidance through the bill referencing process, legal challenges, and administrative matters. I have always and will continue to work to protect the institution of the legislature and ensure that we will faithfully represent the interest of the people of Nebraska. As chair and vice chair of the General Affairs Committee over the past 5 years, I have learned how important it is to work with my committee members and all senators, as well as other entities, to come to the decision that will work for all. During my time as vice chair, we passed many pieces of meaningful legislation that promote and protect the state's concerns, as well as promoting private businesses. I always strove to be fair and impartial with all my colleagues and will continue to be dedicated to these principles if chosen as vice chair of the executive board. Because the committee meets over the lunch hour, it will not interfere with my duties in the General Affairs Committee. If elected as vice chair of the executive board, I am firmly and committed to making Nebraska Legislature the best in the country. I ask for your vote at this time.
Thank you, Senator Lowe. Are there any further nominations? Senator McKinney, you're recognized to speak.
Thank you, Mr. President. I rise to nominate myself as vice chair of the executive board. I rise because I believe that we should have a diversity of voices on the executive board, especially considering that if Senator Lowe was elected, the eastern side of the state wouldn't have a voice as far as president and chair and vice chair of the executive board. Also think that going into this year, the executive board is going to deal with a lot of important issues that I think affect many of us, and I think especially around issues with the Inspector General and the Ombudsman, we should have diversity of voices because a lot of those issues impact communities like mine more than others disproportionately, and I'm committed to holding up this institution as best as possible and doing what's right for Nebraskans, and I ask for your vote. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator McKinney. Are there any further nominations for vice chair? Senator Wayne, you're recognized.
Thank you. I'd like to nominate myself for vice chair. Thank
you, Senator Wayne. Are there any further nominations for Vice Chair of the Executive Board? Seeing no hands, we'll proceed to the vote, and the clerk will distribute ballots. And the three nominees, Senator Lowe, Senator McKinney, Senator Wayne.
I didn't know that was my time to give a speech. We closed nominations first, and then Aguilar spoke, but that was my, so do I get to give a speech or not?
Yes, Senator, you're recognized to speak.
Thank you. Sorry. Colleagues, my first year here, there was an uncontested hearing, or chair, and that senator talked for about an hour. So go ahead and relax. I brought my binder, and we'll start with the early parts of my life here in Nebraska. I'm just joking, Senator Arch. Don't worry about it too much yet. But I do think it's important when we're talking about leadership that we talk about people who can study the issues and work tirelessly. And for the conservatives in the room, I want to remind you that Senator Lowe and Senator Chambers sang a duet back and forth on the floor my freshman year, so I think that disqualifies him automatically. I do believe you should have somebody who will work tirelessly, who will spend hours after hours working on the issues. And to me, the most important thing about this institution is to make sure that you can build relationships across party lines. Different ideologies can come together to make sure we can manage this institution. And that is why I'm supporting Senator McKinney. I withdraw my nomination.
The nomination is withdrawn. Are there any further nominations for Vice Chair of the Executive Board? Seeing no hands, I'll ask the clerk's office and staff to distribute the ballots. The nominees are Senator Lowe and Senator McKinney. Senators Hughes, Dungan, and John Kavanaugh, could you come forward and serve as the vote counters? Senator Lowe has been elected Vice Chair of the Executive Board. Congratulations. Speaker Arch, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. President. Next on the agenda is the 3rd District Caucus appointment for the replacement, and so to facilitate that, the body will stand at ease for just a few minutes while the 3rd District Caucus meets and identifies their appointment. Thank you.
Thank you, Speaker Arch. Senator Walls, you're recognized for a motion.
Sorry, guys. Thank you, Mr. President. I move to proceed to the election of the 3rd caucus member of the Executive Board of the Legislative Council.
Mr. Clerk.
Mr. President, a communication from Senator Lowe. The 3rd District Caucus has elected Senator Mike Jacobson as the newest member of the 3rd District Caucus's representation on the Executive Board.
All those in favor of the nominees say aye. Those opposed say nay. The nominee is elected. Senator Bostar for a motion.
I move the approval of the nominee to the Executive Board of the Legislative Council.
All those in favor say aye. Those opposed, nay. The motion carries. We'll proceed to the introduction of new bills. Please bring your new bills forward. Speaker Arch, you're recognized for an announcement.
Well, good morning, colleagues. If I could have your attention for just a moment, I want to welcome everybody to the second session of the 108th Legislature, and a special welcome to Senator Fred Meyer. You have the prime seat up front in the middle, so congratulations and welcome. Well, I hope everyone's interim was restful and you come back with batteries recharged, ready to go. And for those of you who are experiencing your first short session, I have been asked, what's the difference? What's the difference between a long session and a short session? And I remember my first short session, I asked Senator Howard, who was my mentor at that time, I said, so what's the difference? And she laughed. And she says, you now have 60 days to complete 90 days of work. And that's what we'll be doing. It's a short session. We have a lot of work to do. But honestly, I'm looking at this as an opportunity. 60 days of opportunity, that's what we have in front of us. There's only 49 of us in a state of 2 million that has the opportunity that we have. So I want to enumerate some of those opportunities that we have. Number one, we have the opportunity to strengthen the institution. This is a real opportunity in front of us. I presented some proposals at our Legislative Council that I think would strengthen the institution. Some of you have ideas as well on how we can strengthen the institution, and I'm very interested in hearing those. We'll have more discussions about that over this session. We certainly have the opportunity to work together to make the state of Nebraska stronger. That is the prime opportunity that we have. And our agenda will be set by your priority bills. Choose them wisely to have the greatest impact on the greatest number of people. We only have 60 days. We can't do everything, so we need to consider the greatest impact. Third, to those of you who are in your last year before you term limit out, I would encourage you to mentor those who are following you. Term limits have a real impact on our legislature. Some of you have developed a high level of skill as a senator, and hopefully we've all gathered some wisdom along the way. Please purposefully pass that on to those who will need to step into leadership quickly. Others did that for us, and it was extremely valuable. And next, the other opportunity is to show the nation how a legislature can function. In my meetings over the summer with speakers from other states, we're all dealing with similar dynamics in our legislatures. As a representative form of government, we should not be surprised that we find division within our body. Our society is divided. But what we must develop is the ability to have passionate but civil discourse on very difficult subjects. That's going to take everyone's commitment to work together to craft legislation that allows the majority to govern, however you define majority, with respecting minority input, however you define minority. My observation is that we've become too simple in our definitions of majority and minority. We always default to party affiliation. But we know that there are other definitions, not the least of which is urban and rural. Please keep this especially in mind when we come to our rules debate. Every time we vote no and a bill passes, we are in the minority by definition. We all find ourselves there. So the opportunity, I would say, to create a model for other states to study that demonstrates an effective and efficient political process that produces quality debate and a quality product. I believe the majority of our citizens are longing for this kind of leadership, and I believe we're capable of doing this. But what's it going to take? And I have 4 components. First, hard work. You know that being a legislator is hard work, and it takes that. Good legislative work. First of all, the bills. Please work your bills. Go to the opposition to see if their concerns can be addressed before the bills get to the floor. Make the bill better. No one individual or one group, however you define the group, possesses all of the good ideas. Build support for your bills. Don't just roll it out and hope for the best. Know your bills. If you're the principal introducer, study your bills and content to be prepared to answer questions in committee and on the floor. Go find the answers. Your staff can educate you, but it's our responsibility to know the bill. Committees, work the bills in committee. Don't simply pass them out to the floor to work out the details. Private conversations can occur in committee, but when it comes to the floor, it's very difficult, nearly impossible to negotiate on the microphone. Debates. It's hard work to focus on the merits rather than devolving into personal attacks. Do your homework. Be prepared to clearly articulate your opposition or your support. It's hard work. Second, relationships. Spend time talking to each other, not just about each other, not just about policy. Find out each other's stories. Learn about each other as human beings. Go sit with people that you wouldn't normally relate to and welcome others when they come to sit with you. Some of you spent time over the interim building more relationships, and I think that will pay off, and thank you for doing that. Third, respect for each other. As fellow travelers who don't possess all of the answers to our society's issues, we should respect our right to think differently from each other. Respect for the process, committee structure, rules, floor debate, personal priorities, and we know that the personal priorities is what sets our agenda, so choose those carefully. For the institution, we have a treasure that is much easier to tear down than to build up. Our society must look to this institution to govern wisely with thoughtful professionalism and decorum. We must set the example so that our society respects the institution. Without respect for this institution, our society will eventually be ungovernable. Fourth, sacrifice. We've all sacrificed to be here. Some of you left careers. Some of you have made major financial sacrifices. Some of you left your homes and relocated to Lincoln during the session. We've all left families and relationships during the sessions. But there's even more sacrifice required. Sacrifice is defined as the loss of something valuable for the sake of a greater cause. As we debate policy this session, we may be asked to give up some of what we want for a greater cause. And that greater cause may be the institution itself. So, my vision for this session? Seize the opportunities before us. We have 60 days to do that. Let's work hard, build relationships, show respect for each other as we build a better Nebraska over the next 60 days. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Speaker Arch. Mr. Clerk, are there any messages, reports, or announcements?
I do have a few items, Mr. President. A series of proposed rule changes from Senator Erdman, Speaker Arch, and Senator Ben Hansen. Additionally, Senator Hunt prioritizes Legislative Bill 307 as a personal priority.
New bills, Mr. Clerk.
Thank you, Mr. President. New bill, Legislative Bill 821, introduced by Senator Blood. It's a bill for inoculating the students, amends sections 79-215, revised statute committee supplement 202, change provisions relating to the preliminary enrollment of the school district by children of military families. Requires any preliminary or advanced enrollment provisions of a school district apply to students with an individualized education program or students that receive special education as prescribed, and repeals the original section. Legislative Bill 822, introduced by Senator Blood, is a bill for inoculating public health, amends sections 28.327, 38. 2101, 38.2116, and 38.2139, revised statute committee supplement 202, sections 38.131, revised statute committee supplement 223, adopt the social worker licensure compact, change provision related to criminal background checks under the Uniform Credentialing Act, provides for issuance of multi-state licenses to practice social work under the compact and require criminal background checks, provides powers and duties under the Mental Health Practice Act, harmonized provisions, provides an operative date, and repeals the original section. Legislative Bill 823, introduced by Senator Blood, is a bill for an act relating to public health, adopts the Physician Assistance PA Licensure Compact, changes provisions relating to criminal background checks under the Uniform Credentialing Act, requires criminal background checks under the Medicine and Surgery Practice Act as prescribed, harmonized provisions, provides an operative date, and repeals the original section. Legislative Bill 824, introduced by Senator Blood, bill for an act relating to public health, adopts the Dentist and Dental Hygienist Compact and changes provisions relating to the criminal background checks under the Uniform Credentialing Act, requires criminal background checks under the Dentistry Practice Act as prescribed, harmonized provisions, provides an operative date, and repeals the original section. Legislative Bill 825, introduced by Senator Blood, bill for an act relating to revenue and taxation, adopts the Nebraska Farmers of Color Opportunity Act, provides tax credits, harmonized provisions, provides an operative date, and repeals the original section. Legislative Bill 826, introduced by Senator Blood, bill for an act relating to game law, authorizes resident and non-resident veterans and active duty military personnel to acquire certain combination permits and stamps and state park entry permits, harmonized provisions, repeals the original section. Legislative Bill 827, introduced by Senator Blood, bill for an act relating to child labor, adopts the Entertainment Industry Child Performer Protection Act, redefines terms, eliminates exemptions for employment of performing arts, harmonized provisions, repeals the original section, outright repeals section 48.30101 and 48.331.001. Legislative Bill 828, introduced by Senator Blood, bill for an act relating to the Nebraska Apiary Act. Restates legislative intent, defines and redefines terms, provides a penalty, creates the pollinator task force, and provides powers and duties to the task force, provides duties to Nebraska Agriculture, Director of Agriculture, Director of Natural Resources, Director of Environment and Energy, Secretary of the Game and Parks Commission, Director of State Engineer, requires a report, creates the Nebraska Apiary Registry, provides immunity for certain damages related to bees as prescribed, harmonized provisions, repeals the original section. Legislative Bill 829, introduced by Senator Blood, bill for an act relating to insurance, provides changes provisions relating to coverage or screening for colorectal cancer and repeals the original section. Legislative Bill 830, introduced by Senator Blood, bill for an act related to state government, designates state tartan. Legislative Bill 831, introduced by Senator Blood, bill for an act relating to Noxious Weed Control Act, restates legislative findings and declarations, defines and redefines terms, provides duty for the Director of Agriculture, provides penalty, provides control of restricted plants, prescribed harmonized provisions, repeals the original section. Legislative Bill 832, introduced by Senator Blood, bill for an act relating to government, authorizes acceptance of session or retrocession of federal jurisdiction for juvenile matters, changes provisions and provides duties relating to such acceptance, authorizes certain agreements and repeals the original section. Legislative Bill 833, introduced by Senator Blood, bill for an act relating to public health, adopts the Prescription Drug Affordability Act. Legislative Bill 834, introduced by Senator Blood, bill for an act relating to Dentistry Practices Act, establishes requirements for resident license, harmonized provisions, and repeals the original section. Legislative Bill 835, introduced by Senator Blood, bill for an act relating to public health, adopts school psychologist interstate licensure compact, harmonized provisions, repeals the original section. Legislative Bill 836, introduced by Senator Lowe, it's bill for an act relating to Nebraska Liquor Control Act. Amends several sections, provides requirement for retail license displaying co-branded alcoholic beverages immediately adjacent to any soft drink, fruit juice, bottled water, candy, or snack food portraying cartoons or youth-oriented images as prescribed, and repeals the original section. Legislative Bill 837, introduced by Senator Lowe. It's a bill for an act relating to public power and irrigation districts, provides for the division of voting precincts for purposes of establishing boundary lines for operating areas, charter territory, and district elections, and eliminates the requirement for approval by the Secretary of State, harmonized provisions, repeals the original section, declares an emergency. Legislative Bill 838, introduced by Senator Lowe. It's a bill for an act relating to the Nebraska Arts Council, changes provisions relating to the appointment of members to the council, and repeal the original section. Legislative Bill 839, introduced by Senator Lowe. It's a bill for an act relating to the State Racing Gaming Commission, changes provisions relating to the appointment qualifications, removal of members of the commission, changes provisions relating to the executive director of the commission, repeals the original section, declares an emergency. Legislative Bill 840, introduced by Senator McKinney. It's a bill for an act relating to cities, adopts the Poverty Elimination Action Plan Act. Legislative Bill 841, issued by McKinney. It's a bill for an act relating to schools, adopts the School Leadership Engagement Act, provides an operative date, and provides severability. Legislative Bill 842, issued by Senator McKinney. It's a bill for an act relating to housing, defines and redefines terms under the Municipal Density and Missing Middle Housing Act, the Nebraska Affordable Housing Act, the Nebraska Housing Agency Act, changes provisions relating to activities that are eligible for assistance from the Affordable Housing Trust Fund, harmonized provisions, provides an operative date, repeals the original section, declares an emergency. Legislative Bill 843, introduced by Senator McKinney. It's a bill for an act relating to the Middle Income Workforce Housing Investment Act, changes workforce housing grant maximums and a matching fund requirement as prescribed, and repeals the original section. Legislative Bill 844, introduced by Senator Erdman. It's a bill for an act relating to the Farm Labor Contractors Act, defines terms, requires certain actions by certain seed corn producers, provides duties to the Director of Agriculture and the Department of Agriculture, provides a penalty, harmonized provisions, repeals the original section. Legislative Bill 845, introduced by Senator Hunt. It's a bill for an act relating to the Uniform Residential Landlord and Tenant Act, prohibits evictions of certain tenants during the school year, defines terms, harmonized provisions, and repeals the original section. Legislative Bill 846, introduced by Senator Hunt. It's a bill for an act relating to bed bugs, adopts the Bed Bug Detection and Treatment Act. Legislative Bill 847, introduced by Senator Brewer. It's a bill for an act relating to the Interstate Civil Defense and Disaster Compact. changes provisions relating to emergency response rooms so that states withdraws the Interstate Civil Defense and Disaster Compact, harmonize provisions, repeals the original section, outright repeals section 109, appendix, reissue revised statutes of Nebraska. Legislative Bill 848, introduced by Senator Brewitz, bill for enacting the Nebraska National Guard, changes the maximum age for the adjunct general and repeals the original section. Legislative Bill 849, introduced by Senator Jacobson, it's bill for enacting new insurance, changes provisions relating to rate adjustment and repeals the original section. Legislative Bill 850, introduced by Senator Jacobson, it's bill for enacting relating to appropriations, changes the use of reappropriated funds as prescribed and declares an emergency. Legislative Bill 851, introduced by Senator Jacobson, it's bill for an act relating to the Department of Economic Development, grants provisions relating to internship grants, provides an operative date, repeals the original section, declares an emergency. Legislative Bill 852, introduced by Senator Jacobson, it's bill for an act relating to Medicare Supplement Insurance Minimum Standards Act, provides limitations regarding reimbursement for durable medical equipment, prosthetics, orthostenics, and supplies, and repeals the original section, declares an emergency. Legislative Bill 853, introduced by Senator Jacobson, it's bill for an act relating to revenue and taxation, redefines the term, changes provisions relating to homestead exemptions, harmonized provisions, repeals the original section, outright repeals sections 77350502, 77350603, and declares an emergency. Legislative Bill 853, introduced by Senator Jacobson, it's bill for an act relating to certified public accountants, changes the examination eligibility, certification, and permitting requirements relating to the certified public accountants, harmonized provisions, repeals the original section. Legislative Bill 855, introduced by Senator Conrad, it's bill for an act relating to schools, prohibits the school board or board of education of a school district from using a debt collection agency to collect or attempt to collect outstanding debts on a school lunch or breakfast account of a student from assessing or collecting any interest, fees, or other monetary penalties for such debts as prescribed. Legislative Bill 856, introduced by Senator Frederickson, it's bill for enacting the Child Care Subsidy Program, changes eligibility requirements, and repeals the original section. Legislative Bill 857, introduced by Senator Dungan, it's bill for an act relating to the Department of Health and Human Services, creates the Nebraska Prenatal Plus program as prescribed. Legislative Bill 858, introduced by Senator Linehan, it's bill for enacting relating to appropriations. State's intent to appropriate funds to the State Department of Education declares an emergency. Legislative Bill 859, introduced by Senator Linehan. It's bill for an act relating to the Nebraska Political Accountability and Disclosure Act, change requirements for certain persons holding elective office relating to potential conflicts of interest, provides an exemption, harmonized provisions, repeals the original section. Legislative Bill 860, introduced by Senator Linehan. It's bill for an act relating to education, changes a reporting requirement relating to the Early Childhood Education Grant Program, and repeals the original section. Legislative Bill 861, introduced by Senator Linehan. It's bill for an act relating to election petitions, changes procedures for removal of a name from a petition, provides penalty, and repeals the original section. Legislative Bill 862, introduced by Senator Linehan, it's bill for an act relating to schools, changes provisions relating to transportation of students to provide a reporting duty to the school districts, provides powers and duties to the State Department of Education, repeals the original section. Legislative Bill 863, introduced by Senator Linehan, it's bill for an act relating to revenue and taxation, changes provisions relating to an income tax adjustment for federal retirement annuities, and repeals the original section. Legislative Bill 864, introduced by Senator Dungan, it's bill for an act relating to appropriations. State's intent regarding appropriations declares an emergency. Legislative Bill 865, introduced by Senator Bosselman, it's bill for an act relating to the Nebraska Broadband Act. Requires the provider to submit an annual report to the Nebraska Broadband Office as prescribed, harmonized provisions, and repeals the original section. Legislative Bill 866, introduced by Senator Bosselman, it's bill for an act relating to the Nebraska Power Review Board. Changes provisions relating to board composition, eligibility, terms, and compensation, and repeals the original section. Legislative Bill 867, introduced by Senator Bosselman, it's bill for an act relating to game law, defines terms, provides for a voluntary hunting and fishing guide and outfitter database, provides powers and duties to the Game and Parks Commission, provides a fee, provides for account applicability, harmonized provisions, repeals the original section. Legislative Bill 868, introduced by Senator Bosselman, it's bill for an act relating to Petroleum Release Remedial Action Cash Fund, extends the sunset date, repeals the original section, declares an emergency. Legislative Bill 869, introduced by Senator Bostard, it's bill for an act relating to the County Veteran Services Committees. Changes provisions relating to the provision of veteran aid and burial services, and repeals the original section. Legislative Bill 870, introduced by Senator Kavanaugh. It's a bill for an act relating to the Sexual Assault Victims Bill of Rights. Provides for rights of notification and information of victims of sexual assault as prescribed, requires preservation of sexual assault forensic evidence as prescribed, and repeals the original section. Legislative Bill 870, introduced by Senator Kavanaugh, is a bill for an act relating to the Temporary Assistance for Needy Families Program. Requires the Department of Health and Human Services to submit a report as prescribed. Legislative Bill 872, introduced by Senator Clements, a bill for an act relating to government. Prohibits payment to government entities by means of a central bank digital currency, defines terms, and repeals the original section. Legislative Bill 873, introduced by Senator Ballard, is a bill for an act relating to real estate. redefines the term, changed provisions related to requirements for real estate closing agents, repeals the original section. Legislative Bill 874, introduced by Senator Bostard, it's a bill for an act relating to child care licensing and child care facilities. Change requirements for child care licensing, liability insurance for child care license applicants, background checks for child care employees, and the use of blankets to child care facilities. Provides reporting requirements to the legislature from the Department of Health and Human Services, the state fire marshal, municipalities. Provides a property tax exemption, harmonized provisions, repeals the original section. Legislative Bill 875, introduced by Senator Hughes, bill for an act relating to the Nebraska Liquor Control Act, prohibits the sale of alcoholic liquor or beer at less than cost as prescribed, harmonized provisions, repeals the original section. Legislative Bill 876, introduced by Senator Holcroft, bill for an act relating to infants, adopts the Newborn Safe Haven Act, prohibits prosecution for persons complying with the Newborn Safe Haven Act, and repeals the original section. Mr. President, finally, a communication. Senator Holcroft would designate Legislative Bill 137 as his personal priority for the session. That's all I have this time.
New bills, Mr. Clerk.
Thank you, Mr. President. Legislative Bill 877, introduced by Senator Holcroft. It's a bill for an act relating to the assessment of property, change provisions relating to the special valuation of agricultural or horticultural land, provides for retroactive applicability, repeals the original section, declares emergency. Legislative Bill 878, introduced by Senator Holcroft and others, bill for an act relating to elections. Provides change and eliminates provisions regarding elections to certain purposes, harmonized provisions, repeals the original section, outright repeals sections 10, 70301. Legislative Bill 879, introduced by Senator Kavanaugh. It's a bill for an act relating to public health and welfare, change provisions relating to discipline under the Uniform Credentialing Act, eliminates the Let Them Grow Act and the Preborn Child Protection Act, harmonized provisions, repeals original section, outright repeals section 716912, 716913, 14, 15, 16, 17, 7301, 02, 03, 04, 05, 06, and 07. Legislative Bill 880, introduced by Senator Hughes, bill for an act relating to the Drinking Water State Revolving Fund Act. Change the requirement relating to land acquisition and source water loan fund, harmonized provisions, repeals the original section. Legislative Bill 881, introduced by Senator Ballard, is bill for an act relating to the Middle Income Workforce Housing Investment Act. Redefines terms, repeals the original section. Legislative Bill 882, introduced by Senator Bostar. It's a bill for an act relating to the Federal Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program. Requires the Department of Health and Human Services to provide coverage for online ordering delivery fees and repeals the original section. Legislative Bill 883, introduced by Senator Brewer. It's a bill for an act relating to public safety. Eliminates provisions relating to handgun purchase requirements, changes and transfers provisions on criminal history record checks relating to firearms and explosives, provides a penalty, harmonized provisions, repeals the original section, outright repeals section 69, 24, 01, 02, 03, 04, 05, 06, 07, 08, 09, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, and 25. Legislative Bill 884, introduced by Senator Bostar. It's a bill for an act relating to the Medical Assistance Program. Change provisions relating to Medicare estate recovery by the Department of Health and Human Services and repeals the original section. Legislative Bill 885, introduced by Senator Bostar. It's a bill for an act relating to insurance. Provides requirements for coverage of lung cancer screening as prescribed. Legislative Bill 886, introduced by Senator Conrad. It's a bill for an act relating to homeowner associations, provides restrictions and exemptions for the regulation of political signs as prescribed. Legislative Bill 887, introduced by Senator Brewer. It's a bill for an act relating to nonprofit organizations, adopts the Nebraska Nonprofit Security Grant Program Act. Legislative Bill 888, introduced by Senator Vargas. It's a bill for an act relating to appropriations, harmonizes funds to the appropriates funds to the Department of Economic Development. That's all I have this time, Mr. President.
Senator Conrad wishes to announce some guests under the north balcony. Nancy and Luke Weller, please stand and be recognized by your Nebraska Legislature. This is the last call for bill introductions. Senators, please bring your bills forward. Mr. Clerk, for new bills.
Thank you, Mr. President. New bills. Legislative Bill 889, introduced by Senator Vargas. It's a bill for enacting appropriations, appropriates funds to the Department of Economic Development. Legislative Bill 890, introduced by Senator Boston. It's a bill for enacting the Nebraska Juvenile Code. Provides for certified copies of sealed juvenile records to the attorneys as prescribed. Harmonized provisions, repeals the original section. Legislative Bill 891, introduced by Senator Boston. It's a bill for an act related to the Motor Vehicle Industry Regulation Act. Redefines manufacturing and repeals the original section. Legislative Bill 829, introduced by Senator Boston. It's a bill for an act relating to the Uniform Controlled Substances Act. Changes provisions relating to controlled substance schedules. Harmonized provisions, repeals the original section. Legislative Bill 893, introduced by Senator Ibas. Bill for an act relating to the Imagine Nebraska Act. Changes provisions relating to types of property receiving a property tax exemption, repeals the original section. Legislative Bill 894, introduced by Senator Ibas. Bill for an act relating to county sheriffs. Changes law enforcement officer certification requirements for candidates for sheriff as prescribed, and repeals the original section. Legislative Bill 895, introduced by Senator Sanders. Bill for an act relating to the Nebraska National Guard. Changes incentive payment provisions relating to recruitment and retention, and repeals the original section. Legislative Bill 896, introduced by Senator Ballard. Bill for an act relating to telehealth services. Eliminates a requirement relating to patient consent and repeals the original section. Legislative Bill 897, introduced by Senator Lippincott, is a bill for an act relating to appropriations, appropriates funds to the Department of Economic Development, and declares an emergency. New bill, Legislative Bill 898, introduced by Senator Ibach. It's a bill for an act relating to criminal history record information. Adopts the National Crime Prevention and Privacy Compact. Provides duties and powers for the Superintendent of Law Enforcement and Public Safety and the Nebraska State Patrol. That's all I have this time, Mr. President.
Mr. Clerk, new bills and items.
Thank you, Mr. President. Legislative Bill 899, introduced by Senator Hughes, bill for enacting the schools. Exempts Class 3 school districts from the prohibition on suspending a student in pre-kindergarten through second grade and repeals the original section. Legislative Bill 900, introduced by Senator Brandt, bill for enacting Nebraska Rules of the Road. Changes provisions relating to the length of vehicles and repeals the original section. New LR 75CA, 275CA from Senator Blood. Proposed amendment repealing provisions that prohibit a person from being denied employment because of such person's membership in or non-membership in a labor organization. New LR 76 from Senator Ibaugh. That'll be laid over. Priority bill designations. Senator Dungan has selected Legislative Bill 857 as his personal priority. Senator Day has designated Legislative Bill 126 as her personal priority, and Senator Frederickson has designated Legislative Bill 856 as his personal priority bill. Series of name adds: Senator Blood and Von Gillern to LB 52, Senator Brewer to LB 126, Holcroft, Brandt, Lowe, Decay, Jacobson to 137, Merman to 165, Holcroft 292, Blood 430, Merman 441, and Michaela Kavanaugh 461. That's all I have this time, Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk. Senator Aguilar, you're recognized for an announcement.
Thank you, Mr. President. Following my election as permanent executive board chairperson, I will be moving into the committee's designated office this week. My former office's room 1118 will be considered vacant, so pursuant to the legislature's office assignment policy, any member may request to move to the vacant office based on seniority of lifetime length of service. Please keep in mind that any member who elects to move offices will vacate their current office assignment, both for their temporary and permanent offices, for the remainder of the biennium. Any member interested in requesting a move to room 1118 should send a letter or email making such a request to my office no later than noon tomorrow. Should you have any questions, please contact my office. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Senator Aguilar. Mr. Clerk.
Mr. President, one final item. The Government, Military, and Veterans Affairs Committee has designated Legislative Bill 43 as one of the two committee priority bills. Legislative Bill 43, Government, Military, and Veterans Affairs Committee priority bill. Finally, Mr. President, priority motion. Senator Aguilar would move to adjourn the body until Thursday, January 4th, 2024 at 10 o'clock a.m.
Senators, you've heard the motion to adjourn. All those in favor say aye. Those opposed, nay. The motion carries. We're adjourned for the day.